David Cronenberg has been exploring the human body, its context in society, and how society at the time reacts to the body his entire career. He's a true master of not just body horror, but societal commentary through the medium of film, using the human condition as an allegory again and again. Because of this, Crimes of the Future should feel tired, familiar, and metaphor deja vu, but it isn't. It doesn't. It's impressive that at the age of 79, David Cronenberg was still finding fascinating ways to explore the body, explore the themes of mutilation, evolution, pain, and sexual desire to create unique pieces of art. And that's one of the biggest themes of this film: art. This film explores what it means to be an artist. For this reason, Soul feels like the closest mirror to Cronenberg out of all of his protagonists. Soul is a performance artist who has accelerated evolution syndrome, which forces his body to create new organs with no apparent use in quick succession. As a result of this, Soul rejects these so-called neo-organs and has them removed in front of audiences as a form of art. It's representing what it takes to make art, what sacrifices you must make to be an artist. You give your body, in this case literally and soul, to your audience. You bare naked your entire being and open up to judgment. You reveal your darkest abominations in hopes of being understood, in hopes of giving meaning to your suffering. Not to mention, again, this is literal in the film, you lose a piece of yourself every single time you do it. You can interpret this as you losing that burden, lifting that weight from your chest, but it could also be interpreted as losing the thing that makes you stronger, trying to rid of the very nature of being human. Publicly removing your pain comes with a cost. For one, people expect you to do it again, so in some sick way you may even cause yourself pain, self-sabotage just to give your audience something. There's a moment in this film where somebody suggests to Soul that maybe he wills these organs into being. It's interesting because maybe he does, because though he sees them as a burden, sees them as a mistake in the evolutionary progression, they're also what's giving him purpose. They're giving him an audience, and what's an artist without an audience? Just a person in pain. Without an avenue to rid of this pain, life is almost unbearable. It's what gives art its meaning, not only to the artist, but to the audience who express their own pain vicariously through the art. Like how when you experience loss in real life, whether it be a death or a broken relationship, oftentimes you watch films that explore those themes, you listen to music that makes beautiful what hurts. It's a therapy to all involved. Which brings us to the idea of people in this film evolving past the point of feeling pain. People physically not experiencing the necessary burden of life. There's a monologue in this film by Whippet who explains that our nervous system, our ability to feel pain, is necessary to survival. It's a built-in detection system. It's a beautiful thought to never feel pain, but in reality, it's a mandatory burden. There's a real condition called congenital insensitivity to pain and anhidrosis, or CIPA for short, wherein people are actually born with this ability to send pain signals to the brain, nor heat or cold. Because of this, around 20% of all people with this condition die before their 3rd birthday, because we need to feel pain. Physically, we require it to keep us alive, but also in terms of art, it reminds us that we're alive. It gives us purpose. I think Cronenberg is sharing a bit of himself once again, but in a meta way here, because he's showing us what it takes for him to show us anything. It's true poetry, dare I say sentimental. Cronenberg has always been concerned with the societal implications of technology and our interactions with each other, but he has rarely felt so urgently trying to tell the audience of the personal implications of his job and the interactions we have with his art. It's a very personal look into the soul of a man who has given us so much for so many decades. And originally Nicolas Cage was intended to play Soul and then Ralph Fiennes, but this film was in production for so long that it all never worked out, which is a godsend really, because though the interpretations of those two would be very interesting for vastly different reasons, Viggo Mortensen gives an incredible performance as Soul Tenser, as do all the cast, especially Kristen Stewart, who has long beaten the unable to act allegations. Also, not Anthony Starr is great as Lang Dotrice, who is a character with so much emotional complexity he really could have had his own film. Because his character is in relation to the Brecken character, who largely is more of an idea than a character since he dies in the opening sequence. We see him eating what's seemingly a plastic bucket of some sort whilst foaming at the mouth, and then he is promptly suffocated by his mother, who immediately confesses to the murder. We just see this bizarre setup and then a horrific scene of anti-maternal sadism, because Cronenberg is nowhere near concerned with explaining this movie or its world to you in the beginning. You wait the entire movie for bits and pieces of information to contextualize the world our characters live in. It turns out they live in a distant future where pollution has all but destroyed the natural world. Humans are quickly evolving in new and varying ways, and surgery is, as the film puts it, the new sex. Evolution is one of the major theories about human life. In theory, it's helpful and necessary for survival, as is pain. However, not all evolution is necessary, and even more to the point, not all evolution is helpful. To take a real-life example, erector hair muscles, which in the animal kingdom serves the purpose of making animals appear bigger when they are threatened or to keep them warm when it's cold. But in humans, we just simply get goosebumps which have no real function. Not in the slightest helpful, but I suppose not harmful. But how about our spines, which have evolved into S-shapes once we started to stand upright? Which is unhelpful for weight support and has proven detrimental to the human experience. Our backs fail constantly, and every one of you watching now has probably experienced some back pain at some point or another due to it. Crimes of the Future is tackling the ideology of evolution and what point do we evolve past being human? Well, in this film, not only are people evolving, they're having surgeries done constantly to alter themselves, enhance themselves at times, but as a consequence, one boy Brecken was born with a genetic mutation, a jump in evolution wherein he could digest plastics and synthetic materials naturally. Now, in a world so disastrously cluttered with pollution, it's hard to imagine this evolution didn't come around so that humans may finally be able to clean up the mess they made. A mutation to deal with our own crimes of littering the natural world, destroying it. Nature fought back and made us develop our own natural and yes, painful solution. It's karmic. Brecken is almost like Anna from Blade Runner 2049, a miracle child that is seen as an abomination, a representation of what could be and ultimately what terrifies the government. Because yes, the government tries so very hard to keep under wraps what Brecken is, what he's capable of, even going as far as not accepting the mother's murder confession or trying to sabotage his public autopsy to stop people from believing. Cronenberg was writing this script around 20 years ago when the implications of it could not have been realised, but in the modern context, the implications of this work and the applications to real life cannot be understated. The government in the film are trying to mandate these evolutions, trying to stop the progress of humankind, trying to essentially control the bodies of citizens using their own ideals as the gold standard. This is especially relevant in a post-Roe vs. Wade overturned world, in a world where trans rights are still being fought for, having to be fought for. Cronenberg unwittingly wrote a massively pro-LGBTQ+ piece, and it stands as compelling to say the least. Because this isn't just about your body, your choice. It's about sexual freedom, about how sex evolves every day, new kinks, new ways of having sex, new urges. I mentioned the tagline of surgery is the new sex earlier, and this is the film basically admitting that these performance pieces are essentially our characters having sex for an audience, or at least doing something on the same sensual and intimate level. The government disdain people for these surgeries, but it's the only liberation some can experience in this world, and that is the golden reflection of our actual reality. The legality of everything is a bit blurred in this film, and in real life everything is once again coming to that legal blur. Same-sex marriage is still being questioned in some states in America. It's still a crime in many countries, not even marriage but the very way of being. It's barbaric to see in the real world, and yet people say this movie is grotesque and outrageous when it's merely an impersonation of real life horror. So yes, this film has the usual Cronenberg-isms. It has insane dystopian concepts, not just story-wise but visually. Some of the costume and makeup designs are ridiculously inventive and striking. The gore is tasteful but visceral, and it's cryptic to an endless degree. But to me, this film is on the same pedestal as Videodrome, a film that is so effective with its messaging that it completely obliterates any surface-level criticism. In the end of the film, Saul finally realizes he can eat and digest the synthetic bars made by Lang and his horde. The chair designed to help digestion stops moving because the problem was never digestion. It was never Saul's condition, it was his mentality. He was killing his Neo organs before he could even find out if they had a purpose. He became a believer, he stopped rejecting his mutations. He realized that this evolution is now a part of him and is a natural step. He has become what he referred to as naturally unnatural. He stopped removing his pain and instead learned to deal with it, accept it, and that's how we grow as not only artists but as people. Personally, I believe this film is an instant classic with more to offer than almost any other body horror of the past 20 years or so. It's definitely a peak of Cronenberg's career, and to see it was so massively misunderstood at the time of its release, which was just last year, is a tragedy and a miscarriage of judgment, because this film is nothing less than an intimate look at the building blocks of art, sex, and evolution told through the lens of a sentimental genius. So have you seen Crumbs of the Future? If so, let me know what you think of it, including all of the themes and more we discussed here. Let me know what you think of this video. I read every single comment and reply to as many as possible, and whether it's one from the master of body horror or not, as always, keep watching movies.